Namaste everyone. Welcome to today's guest talk. The topic today is an introduction to Kundalini Yoga for yoga enthusiasts. Our guest speaker today is Ms. Pragya Taneja. I'll share a quick introduction for her. A social scientist by training with a background in language and cultural studies and globalization, Pragya has been working as an independent consultant, trainer, and facilitator in the international development sector for the past 15 years. Also trained in the integral yoga and Kundalini yoga lineages, she is passionate about incorporating self-management and mindfulness-based practices in her work with organizations, teams, and their functioning. Welcome, Pragya. Thank you so much for joining us today. Looking forward to an enlightening session with you. Over to you.
Thank you, Arinima, for that music, beautiful music to start with. It really helped me to center myself. And then also for the introduction, that will save me some time. So thank you for that as well. So a very warm welcome to everybody who's joined. I will not spend any time in introducing myself anymore because Arinima has already done that. But maybe I could just say exactly what is common between whoever is here today and between me. And maybe before that, let me also share my screen. I forgot to do that. Just give me a second. I hope that you can see the screen, right? Yes, you can. Yes, okay, good. Yeah, I was saying that it would be good to just touch upon exactly what binds me to all of you who are present here. I think that's the most important part to start with. Just like you all who are connected with the yoga education spirituality platform, the YES platform, the seeds of which were sown to commemorate the 150th birth anniversary of Sri Aurobindo. I also trained in the integral yoga lineage from Sri Aurobindo Ashram in 2017 under the mentorship of Dr. Vijlani. And then in 2021 and 2022, I also underwent a training in Kundalini Yoga, which is exactly the topic for the day. But before that, let me also just quickly share a little bit about my journey into the practice. It dates back to 2009, when I first was introduced to my now teacher through a common friend. And this was at her place. And she just mentioned, when we introduced ourselves to each other, that I'm a Kundalini Yoga teacher. And I said, oh, what is Kundalini Yoga? I'm not, sure how is it different from other forms of yoga? And we kept in touch after that. 2 years after that, I saw a post by her on social media saying that she would be holding a session for women who may be facing polycystic ovaries related issues. And I've always had polycystic ovaries even as a teenager. So that really got me, hooked. And I said, finally, let's pick up the thread that I had, I met her two years before that. And finally, I got a chance to then, meet her. And I said, I'm coming. So I went to the class and that was it. I never looked back after that. That class was not just, the reason I went there was, of course, the pull factor, but at the same time, there were a lot of other things happening with my life, at that time. I was going through a terrible, terrible heartbreak. I was not enjoying my job at that time. I was massively stressed at work because, of a very uncooperative boss, and it was really stressful. And my health was really taking a backseat. I was 28 at that time, or 27 at that time, and it was so unbelievable that I could barely. I had gone on a little diet, 20s, right? I mean, you're experimenting with everything. So I was on a diet, and at that, just I don't know what it do to my body. It just made me feel so weak that I felt at one point my muscles and they just started to give way. So even walking was painful. And I imagine that for a 28-year-old person. So I was, really concerned and would almost have panic attacks because I was like, what is really happening to me? I'm all of 28 and I can't walk 1 kilometer without terrible pain in my limbs, in my hips, everywhere. So that also was the context when I went to my teacher. And being there, I realized that, it was, I don't know what happened. It was just the practice. It calmed me so much. Of course, you'll realize some elements of it which really worked for me. I'll talk about them in a bit. But that's just to set the pretext that, it was something 1 year down the line after going to these sessions. Never did I think about what happened to my body. I've started mentally feeling much better. Emotionally, I was healthier. And of course, that spiritual connect was, much stronger. So on all levels of being, I was making a lot of progress. So in that 1 year, I said bye-bye to all my health issues, so that's how deep my love for the practice is. And it has grown over the years. Over the years, it has really grown. So having done the course from Aurobindo Ashram, I went, to Kundalini Yoga. COVID happened. In those 2 years, there was a course which happened online. And I said, this is it. I was waiting for it because, these courses were otherwise very expensive. And I thought, wow, so this is the chance for me to do it. So 2021, I trained as a teacher, and I'm here to share about Kundalini Yoga a little bit today. So at this point, now that I've given you a little bit of context of my own journey, at least how it started, let's talk about how the session is structured. I have tried in this 45 minutes. It was a huge challenge for me to, concise everything into a 45-minute capsule, but I had Dr. Bijlani to guide me with beautiful tips, and that those were really helpful. So I tried to give you a very fundamental, rudimentary sense of what Kundalini Yoga is as a person who never, like me in 2009, had never heard about it. And I've also ensured that we have a good balance between theory and also a little bit of practical exposure as well. So the first two parts is more about the knowing part, and the part number 3 and part number 4 will be more about practicing and also experiencing a little bit of what you will hear in the first half of the session. So we'll look at origin and facets to begin with. Then I'll talk about Kundalini Yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan, which is the lineage of Kundalini Yoga that I was trained in. And then we'll talk about the key elements of Kundalini Yoga, the practice itself with some demonstration, and we would end with a meditation practice. And then, of course, there'll be some time, for question answers towards the end. So at this point, let's just quickly tune in. Like we would tune into every Kundalini Yoga class, I would just request you to sit wherever you are sitting comfortably. Just, it's doesn't matter whether you're on your chair or you're on a bed or you're on your mat, it doesn't matter. So wherever you are sitting, just sit comfortably with a tall spine, and just bring your palms together at the heart center. And try and plug your thumbs into the center of your chest, into the sternum. Your fingers are slightly wide apart from each other, and your left palm is pressing into the right palm. Your right palm is pressing into the left, so you can feel the pressure in your palms. And your elbows are slightly extending out, but your shoulders are relaxed. So if you're not relaxed in your shoulder area, just consciously let go, please. The mantra is Ong Namo Gurudev Namo, which is ONG Ong. I bow to the divine wisdom of all that is, and I bow to the divine teacher within me. So let's establish a connection with that inner guide as we enter the session. I'll recite this mantra 3 times. The first time you can hear it. The second and third time, please join me, because joining and singing and chanting is a huge, huge part of Kundalini Yoga, and the impact that it has on you will be much higher if you join in and participate instead of just mentally tuning in. So again, sit tall and let's close our eyes very, very slowly and take a deep inhale and exhale. Inhale again. And exhale. On the next inhale, let's begin. Om Namo Gurave Namo. Om Namo Gurave Namo. Om Namo Gurave Namo. Inhale and just hold that breath. Pause for just a few seconds before you exhale. And breathe out, please. Slowly, you're ready to open your eyes, bring your palms down, back on your thighs. And let's get on with our first part, which is Kundalini Yoga, its origin and its facets. So the first known reference to Kundalini Yoga dates back to the Upanishads between 1000 BC and 500 BC. And the question, of course, is what is Kundalini? Yeah. So Kundalini is that, it comes from the word kundal, which means it's a curled lock of hair. Or it can also be called as a coiled snake. It's an energy, basically, which lies at the base of our spine, just at our, what we call the first chakra, the Mooladhara, the root chakra. And what is Kundalini? So Kundalini is our creative potential, which is untapped. And how do you tap into it? Of course, Kundalini Yoga. But how does that happen? How do you experience it? The experience happens when the energy of the glandular system combines with the energy of the nervous system to create such a sensitivity that the totality of the brain is able to receive the signals and integrate them. So that's when you actually are able to experience what Kundalini is. It's a nerve of the soul. It is a nerve of the soul because it is to be awakened. Your soul is to be awakened. And it also means awareness, because awareness is the active interaction of us as finite individual entity with us as the infinite potential identity. Because both sides are part of who we are, right? We are connected to that finite space most of the time, but we are that infinite. So this dormant energy of awareness is inside of us. It's inside of every one of us who's here today. And Kundalini Yoga is a supreme technology to awaken that awareness and to take us into our original self. So that's a little bit about the word Kundalini itself. Now, it's a science of the 7 chakras. And I'm sure that since all of you are associated with the YES platform, or whoever is joined, otherwise also, since the topic is something which drew you to it, I'm hoping that you would have heard about chakras and, which are the energy centers in our body, pathways through which our Kundalini travels. So Kundalini Yoga is a science which works on the 7 chakras and the arc line. The arc line is our aura. That's our 8th chakra, which is, beyond our 7th, which is the crown chakra. And the hallmark of the science of Kundalini Yoga is the journey of the Kundalini, which is, as I said, the spiritual nerve, to break through the blockage at that root chakra, the Muladhara chakra, and then travel upwards until it reaches the stage where you can associate, you may be able to experience that super consciousness inside. Let me define a few terms. You've seen this, this diagram on the slide. We have 2 different life force in us, 2 different forces in our body. One is called prana, which is the positive life affirming force. And then there is apana, which is the eliminating force. And the 2 forces also meet in our body. Now, how does that happen? For instance, a simple act of breathing in. So when you breathe in, you pull in that breath and you take it, you direct it to your navel all the way, right? On the other hand, some of you may have heard of what we call the root lock, the pelvic lock, and we will also go through it in a bit more in detail. This root lock, when you apply, is like when you squeeze in your pelvic floor muscles. Yeah. So when you do that, you are directing that apana, that eliminative force, also further up in your navel center. Yeah. So on the one hand, you're inhaling prana into your navel center. On the other hand, when you're pulling up your pelvic floor muscles, you are redirecting the apana also upwards towards the navel center. And when these 2 forces in us, when they meet, they generate heat in this pranic center. Yeah. And when this heat is generated, this causes, it puts a little pressure on the Kundalini. And when that happens, the soul nerve, which is coiled inside our root chakra in almost 3.5 circles. It's like a coil, right? Like I said, kundal. It starts to then, make it rise, and it goes through our central channel. So what you see in the diagram is also our left side. There are 3 nadis, 3 main nadis. The left one is called the Ida, which is the moon breath, cooling down effect, and the Pingala, which is the right side, which is our solar breath, which is to more active, more heat-oriented breath. So when the Kundalini rises, when in the pranic center, when the apana and the prana meet, then this rises to the central channel, which is called the Sushumna. And when that happens, it pierces through our various chakras that you see in the diagram, through the root, the sacral, the solar, the heart chakra, the throat chakra, the Agya chakra, and then the crown chakra. And precisely that is the journey of the Kundalini. So once that happens, once you've raised it, the hard part is to keep it up, because our lives are complicated. Our lives are so volatile, and there's so many things that we experience that it's hard to not be affected by those things, and to keep these channels always clean and always clear. So that is something which is the tough part. But this is broadly the science of it, how it works, basically. Very theoretical, but of course, I hope that someday you would get to practice and feel into a little bit of it even today, hopefully towards the end of the session. I would like to now touch upon that, the fact that to study Kundalini Yoga, you have to understand the threefold structure of our being. Now, our essence is a vehicle to experience the universe and to experience the self through these three facets, which is the body, the mind, and the soul. Yeah? And we must understand that we have our own depth and our own experience. We should be able to connect with all three different levels. So how does Kundalini work in these three different areas? I just want to touch upon that very briefly. On the physical level, now the body is a vehicle. It's a functional system which receives and processes and accomplishes various tasks. And just like you would do with your car or your scooter or whatever vehicle you drive, you need to maintain it, right? You need to keep it tuned in. Otherwise, it just will go completely kaput at some point. So similarly with the body. So Kundalini Yoga helps us to take care of the cleaning and the care part of it. And also it allows us to, it teaches us how to gain a strong immune system, vital glands, and very good circulation. And most importantly, also have an awareness of the impact of our own habits, because we are very, very, oblivious. We are almost always running on an autopilot mode. So the practice helps us to be aware of the impact of our habits as well. So that is where it works on the body level. On the mind level, now there are several common challenges. All of us as human beings, we face ups and downs, and the good and the bad is part of every single second of our life, right? And that's the human experience. I mean, nobody can always have joys and nobody can always have sorrows. It's always a mix of both. So the mind also must be developed. I mean, look what happened in the last 5 years of COVID. I mean, so much we've experienced and seen that the mind needs to be so controlled, so artistic, and so developed that it must have a sense of neutrality, a neutrality that lets us encounter and enjoy both these polarities, the good and the bad, the easy and the tough. So there is a need for us to mature our mind and to have the attitude to ride on these waves of life and to really enjoy both the things, as I said. So an important part of Kundalini Yoga is to develop the neutral mind. So, that song, गम और खुशी में फर्क ना महसूस हो जहां मैं दिल को उस मुकाम पर लाता चला गया, right? That's Bhagavad Gita, right? So how do you maintain that neutral mind, that it doesn't affect you, the joys and the sorrows of life, you don't take them to your head or your heart? So that part is what Kundalini Yoga also helps us with. And the last level is the level of the soul, which is that that's a third facet as a human being. Just like no lamp can sustain without putting in some oil or ghee or some kind of fuel in it, no life can also exist without a relationship to the spirit inside of us. And we must understand the relationship that with that infinite part of us, to be connected to our purpose, to be connected to how you can tune into your true self whenever you need to. It's actually a very simple and direct practice, but we are not programmed, to identify with ourselves as the infinite, because we have really, we get caught in rituals and various other dramas of life and all those things, that the last thing we ever end up paying attention to is to connect with the spirit within ourselves. So that's where it helps us to, also work on the soul level. And the most important part, which is from my experience, I can say that it's in Kundalini Yoga, the most important part is your experience. It goes right into the heart. And that is why I keep turning back to this practice, because it really touched my heart. I mean, I cannot describe, it is not cerebral, it is not intellectual, it works on my heart. It touches that part of me where it's easy for me to just establish that connection with the soul. So that is, I think, a very unique experience for each one of us, and no word can replace that experience for us. So very, very individual. Maybe also let's spend a little bit time on talking about what is the leverage of Kundalini Yoga. What does it offer? No? Now, traditionally, there are over 20, 22 different forms of practices of yoga, ancient ones, new ones. So if you look at it, I mean, I'm not going to go through these, but this is just for you to see that, this is all part of what we've acquired and imbibed in our upbringing, also being in India. So, the Bhakti Yoga part, which is devotion and surrender, the Karma Yoga part, which is selfless action, Gyan Yoga, which is using our mind to inquire about its own nature, and then Raj Yoga, which is about, mind and body control. So there's so many different forms of yoga. The Hatha Yoga is looking at, physical postures, cultivating the body, and becoming a wholesome being. If you look at mantra yoga, this is about, rhythm, and breath, and sound, and mantra, and engaging the mind through these different modalities. And then you have Laya yoga, which is, the aim is to alter our consciousness level of our mind to a higher state by making the mind listen to our inner sound. So there are different forms of, so many different forms of yoga that we have, come across. And I'm sure each one of us, we would have experienced it, right? I mean, some of us are more vinyasa lovers, some of us are more hatha yoga lovers, or Iyengar, or whatever form that you are drawn to. So there are these different forms. And each of this emphasizes some facet of the whole, the whole of yoga. So each of this facet, Laya yoga, mantra yoga, hatha yoga, it touches upon one facet of this whole form, the system of yoga. And I think that a good way to think is that each one of these different forms of yoga is like a different facet in a diamond, So in that analogy, Kundalini Yoga can actually be considered to be the diamond itself. Because if you turn it any one particular way, you can find a facet, And if you try to understand the entire diamond through one facet or any one or two facets, you'll find yourself with a less complete understanding of Kundalini Yoga. So it gives us that leverage and that transformative power than any one particular facet can. It opens up our pathways to change and healing that can also circumvent certain limitations and penetrate, different kind of blocks. For example, in a Hatha Yoga scenario, you might work with the emphasis on a bodily form, correct? And yet there are so many of us, including myself, even though I'm a teacher in two different modalities, there's so many of us who cannot take on those forms because of physical limitations. So I also cannot do certain things, because of my body and its limitations. But Kundalini Yoga, the practice of it, to my mind, has made me realize that it gives you that extra dimension that lets you reach around that limitation of the body, It taps not only the pranic energy of the breath or the body or the mind, but also that Kundalini, the deep energy that cuts across the time and space, and through a doorway of timelessness. Just that what I described about really feeling at home, when something touches you so deep. So there's always in a Kundalini session, I find something or the other, that can be done with the practice of Kundalini. And I was never in my session, touched by my teacher or told that the focus should be on physical perfection. So it is not. It is the focus is on your experience, always on your experience. That is your radar. That is your inner compass that guides you. And secondly, it also is said that, it is the fastest way to create transformation and establish that relationship between mind, body, and soul. In my teacher training, I learned that, 12 years of Hatha Yoga, and I think it was 6 years of Raja Yoga, plus 3 years of Mantra Yoga, and 1 year of Laya Yoga together has the impact, which is the effect of just 1 full year of Kundalini Yoga. That's just to give you a simple, understanding of the scale. So if you are in good shape and, with full concentration, if you are if your mind has that equanimity to join into the process, then even if you're doing one particular practice for 40 days, 90 days, you can see drastic differences, in Kundalini, through Kundalini Yoga. And the gift is that each time, I personally, even if I'm disoriented or I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling unsettled at any point in my, day before I enter into a workshop or something, just 3 minutes of chanting a mantra or doing a little bit of practice itself, allows me to just go back in my space again. And so if that 3 minutes can give me that sense of grounding and anchoring, then having a 40-day practice, a 90-day practice, I mean, it has had so many different levels and layers of changes, that one can experience. And lastly, it is also a practice which is, it's a complete practice, a lot of kriyas, 8.4 million kriyas, they make the practice of Kundalini Yoga. Each one of these kriyas, and we'll come to what is kriya in a bit, each of these kriyas, it offers, it's like a piece of music. It's like a perfect sequence of energy and of tones and feelings that are played in this very beautiful instrument of our body. So that's what the leverage that I think I thought I'll share with you from my experience of what Kundalini Yoga offers, in general. Let's talk about Yogi Bhajan, and this is the lineage that I was trained in. So Yogi Bhajan was born in 1929 in Pakistan in a small village called Kot Harkand. And he studied spiritual teachings and scriptures and the religions of the world, and learned Kundalini Yoga with his master, whose name was Sant Hazara Singh. And he became a master himself at the age of 16. He was an economics graduate, and then he served with the Indian Army and also with the military and the government in general until 1968, which is when he moved to the US and traveled, across the world to really pay heed to that deep desire in him to serve and share this technology with people, the young people, especially in the US, because they, the culture 1960s, late 60s, 70s was really all about, drugs, and people were using all these external substances to experience that high. So the practice that he shared with Kundalini, of Kundalini Yoga with these youngsters, they really could experience this high, which was absolutely internal, not externally induced, and also legal. So he said very clearly, he said, "I'm not here to make students, I'm here to train teachers." And so for centuries, Kundalini Yoga, if you look at it, it has been a practice which has been taught in secrecy, available only through a very, master-disciple, guru-shishya relationship. And Yogi Bhajan, when he went to the US, he worked on this aspect of making this available for everybody. So that's a little bit about, who Yogi Bhajan is. And whatever I'm going to share with you now is really about this lineage that I was trained in. So it's a householder's path, as we call it. So it's practiced by people like, all of us here. It's not an ascetic path, not a renunciant path. It's for all of us who cope with our daily challenges, raising our families and holding jobs and managing, businesses and stuff. So all of us playing different roles as mothers and fathers and as brothers and daughters and sons, balancing all of these. So this yoga, I found particularly, it helped me to really do a balanced job of playing different roles in my life. And therefore, it's what we call as the householder's path. It's also a path of self-initiation, which means that there is no external agency asking us to, to enable this connection with ourselves. It's a self-initiation based practice. And lastly, it's not a religion. It's not, an organized way of sort of looking at how religion is. It's for everyone. It's for, it's a universal modality, and it's non-denominational. Let's look at now what are the key elements of a kriya. What is a kriya? In a Kundalini Yoga tradition, we call a combination of postures, breath, sound, mantra, and mudra, meditation. These are integrated to allow the manifestation of a particular state. And a kriya is not a random collection of all of these things. So just as when you drive a car and you put together a transmission in your car, you apply gears in a sequence, right? First, second, third, fourth, and then fifth. So similarly, even in Kundalini Yoga, the kriya has a certain sequence, right? So you cannot change, we don't change these sequences within the kriya itself. It's more than therefore just a collection of exercises in that sense. It's something emergent from the subtle and very concrete interplay of components in that particular sequence, so that the impact is greater than just a random stringing together of 3-4 different exercises or asanas together. And as teachers, we are told not to change that sequence. So this is passed on just the way it was first, documented and put together. And the wisdom of Kundalini Yoga holds that the angles of the asanas, fueled by our breaths or retuned by, let's say, when we chant a mantra, or when we, focus on the eye, here the point between our eyebrows, it allows us to change the very core of our being. So this is really empowering for us as practitioners, because we engage, the practice with a potential to create real and immediate change within us. So a kriya, therefore, is a series of these various sounds and mantras or postures and breaths, but in a certain order. I'm giving you just a few examples of some kriyas. So for example, we have a kriya for relieving inner anger. We have a kriya for pituitary gland. Right? Some of us, I have some hormonal issues as well. So my next go-to practice of 40 days is just to take one set of pituitary gland kriya and just see what wonders it can create for me. Then we have a kriya for disease resistance, kriya for elevation, which is, whenever you want to feel, you're feeling low or depressed, there's a set only for that. So these are just some examples. Kriya for balancing the apana, the eliminative energy, kriya to relax and release fear. So all these are different ways of, looking at what are these various sets. And then there are also some meditation kriyas, which are somehow also, so if the focus is more meditative, then it's called a meditation kriya. And if the focus is more on postures and, a set of different exercises, then we club it under what we call as a physical kriya. So meditative kriya would also be like, topics like clearing the subconscious, or meditation for the heart center, or the nervous energies, for example. So these are some of the ways in which you can, pick up one tool, you're feeling a certain, way on a particular day, and you can just pick up that and be with that practice. You can be with it for however number of days that you want to be. And that's exactly what I'm going to touch upon, that you can do it for 3 minutes, you can do it for 11, 22, 31, 62. And these are the various, time durations, which has a different impact. So 3 minutes is about affecting the electromagnetic field and circulation and stability of the blood. 11 minutes, our glandular system and nerves start to, learn and change. So you see how it progresses now. So 31 minutes is about your endocrinological balance is achieved, and it affects your whole mind and your aura. And the higher you go, 62 minutes, for example, it changes what we call the gray matter in the brain, the subconscious, the shadow, the mind. So all of this is part of how much time you want to devote to a particular kriya or a meditation. And so similarly, even if you look at days, we have in our practice, we have sadhanas. So we take up a practice and we stick, with it for 40 days. I know people who've been doing some practices for 1,000 days. They picked up this challenge for doing it for 3 years altogether. And I can't imagine, I mean, I haven't done that myself, but I can't imagine how deep that practice would be and how it changes things inside. So they say that, if you do it for 11 days, that's the first step you take towards breaking away from the patterns of the mind. For 40 days, you change the habit. For 90 days, if you take up something, you confirm that habit, that new habit. If you do it for 120 days, then that habit becomes who you are. And for 1,000 days, you really master that habit. So you can take these kriyas and the practice of these kriyas for as much as you want. And with that, I think we've come to our practice part of our session. What are the various elements which would define a Kundalini Yoga session? So you may have noticed I'm covered, I'm sitting here with a head cover. And we do that because, when Kundalini, I mean, it's all that energetic, deep energetic work. So when we do that, our 10th gate is here, the crown chakra is here. And, we coil. If you have long hair, I don't have long hair, but if you have long hair, you coil them, you knot them here, the center, what you call as the solar center, and you cover with a fabric, natural cotton fabric, because it helps in the management of that energy, to contain that energy and keep it, at the focus. When most of these kriyas, we focus on our third eye. So it helps us to contain that energy. So, one of the things you will find different in a Kundalini Yoga session is that we try and wear head covers. Then the second thing is timing. Kriyas are practiced and taught exactly like instructed, So I can cut down as a teacher, I can cut down on the timing, but I can't increase them because that would not be advised. So we have to really stick to timing as it is prescribed, very, very, particularly, very diligently sticking to it. Kundalini Yoga is the science of angles and triangles. Now, what do you mean by that? This means that, when you lift your legs at 30 degrees, it affects your navel point, for example. If you lift your arms at 60 degrees, this affects your heart and your lung area. So it's really about, angles and triangles. And so it's something which brings about this focus inside of your body, where you look at which are the various points in your body which are part of these triangles and these angles. And chanting and singing is an essential part. And hopefully, by the end of the session, we also have a small meditation which would include a little chant and singing. And that is something personally which, I'm sure that some of you are here who know me already. And you know this about me, that I am a very musically inclined person. So one of the things which drew me to this practice was that it had elements of mantra and sound and chant, which just lowers my barriers, immediately brings my ego barriers down, because that's my way of connecting with the divine. Music is one of the easiest and the fastest channels, they say, and I am so blessed that God gave me that chance to use that as a tool to connect. So that's an essential component of Kundalini Yoga. The other thing is wearing white. So we wear white clothes simply because white combines all the colors and enhances our magnetic field and our auric field. And Yogi Bhajan, he said that, your aura extends 9 feet around you. And if you wear white, this extends your aura by 1 more foot. So this provides you more protection from harmful energies, and projects your positive energy to inspire others around you and attract that abundance and that prosperity into your life. And lastly, and I have to say this, when I first came into Kundalini class, I felt, oh, this is easy. You're doing one action for, let's say, if you're doing just this part, this for, it's an easy movement, right? Very easy movement. But if you do this for 3 minutes, and if you hold it for 7 minutes, and if you hold it for 11 minutes, it becomes intense. So it becomes repetitive, and you use that to conquer the mind. It's almost like training for a marathon. And that's where I felt that even though the movements might be simple, but the duration for which you hold them and the way you go beyond your mind to hold them is what makes the practice intense and tough at the same time. So yeah. At this point, I think we should practice at least 2. I'm looking at the time also. Let's practice just 2 different, experiences. Let's have 2 different experiences of practicing one of the elements or 2 of the elements of Kundalini Yoga. So one is, let's look at bandha. No? So bandha is like what I told you in the beginning, when you squeeze your pelvic floor muscles. That's a body lock. It's a contraction of muscles so that you are redirecting the energy upwards. So let's try with our mool bandh. No? So wherever you are sitting, sit with a tall spine. And as you close your eyes, you can just tune into my voice. Just take a deep breath. And squeeze your pelvic floor muscles completely, your rectal area, your reproductive organs. Just squeeze them and pull them up. Unless you're in your menstrual cycle, or if you're pregnant, then don't do this for now. Otherwise, you can freely do this. So just closing your eyes, inhaling and squeezing that pelvic floor muscle area and holding your breath for a few seconds. Excellent. Now, so that's your mool bandh. That's your root lock. It's a simple way of redirecting your energy upwards. Very subtle. And the second thing I want to try with you is what we call the breath of fire. Now, what is the breath of fire? It's a fundamental breath which is used in the Kundalini Yoga practice. Now, I'll just quickly stop sharing so I can see you guys better. This particular breath is a rapid rhythmic breath. So how it works is you would just inhale. And when you inhale, your stomach is very loose. It's loose, yeah? Let go. And when you exhale, then your belly goes slightly in. Yeah? But it's a very rapid and rhythmic breath. So it goes like this. Equal bit inhale, equal bit exhale, and very fast. So it goes. This is working on our navel and our diaphragm. This is the area on which this breath works. So once again, I would like to give you contraindications. Please do not do it if you're in a menstrual cycle, or if you're pregnant, or if you think that you've had high BP issues. So then I would request you to just take it easy and just do simple, long and deep breathing. But if none of these things apply to you, then try just inhale and let your belly loose. Equal inhale, equal exhale. And as you exhale, you just take your belly in. And this is different from Kapalbhati. This is not Kapalbhati. Kapalbhati has forceful exhalations, and inhalation happens on your own. Yeah, it doesn't happen. You don't have to inhale consciously. But here you're consciously inhaling and consciously exhaling. And another way to master this breath is you stick your tongue out. It's called the dog's panting. When you're ready, then you can roll your tongue back in and you can do the same thing with your nostrils. Then you get a sense of how it goes. So you can try it now. Sit with a tall spine. And apply root lock. Just pull in the pelvic floor muscles. And start to pump your navel. Equal inhale, equal exhale, and your focus is at your third eye. So that's our breath of fire. That's it. I think I would stop here and just leave you with what Yogi Bhajan once said. Poke, provoke, confront, and elevate. This is how your life must be. My teacher once said that if you really want to change something in your life, then you come to a Kundalini Yoga session. So I leave you with that. And I would just end our session with a little bit of a practice before we open up the session for question answers. Let's do a quick meditation practice to ground us a little bit. Now, this practice is called the Kirtan Kriya. You may have read it also on that slide where we were looking at our different types of meditations. And the Kirtan Kriya is, Yogi Bhajan said that if you don't have time for anything else, you just can take up Kirtan Kriya. And it's one of the foundation-based meditations of Kundalini Yoga practice. According to a study published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease in 2016, they said that doing Kirtan Kriya every day for 12 minutes improves your brain function and your memory, especially in older adults who are at the risk of Alzheimer's disease. And if you Google Alzheimer's disease and if you Google meditation practice for Alzheimer's, Kirtan Kriya will definitely show up. Yeah. And there are a few things that I want to just guide you before we start the practice. It's a 10 to 11 minute practice. But I just want to guide some, how is the eye gaze and how is the mudra and how is the, the visualization, because it's a visualization based practice. So in this, what we'll do is our elbows will be actually resting on our knees and they will be, they'll be straight. So resting on the knees and straight. So if you're sitting also, you can do it, no problem. On a chair also, you can do it. And your hands will be in, to start with, they'll be in Gyan Mudra. And each finger, as it touches one by one with your thumb, you'll have to put gentle pressure on each finger. Okay. And we will go with the mantra Sa, Ta, Na, Ma. Sa is your Jupiter finger touching your thumb. Yeah. And this is your Gyan Mudra. This is for knowledge. Jupiter is for knowledge. Ta is your middle finger or your Saturn finger. It's called the Shuni Mudra. This is touching your thumb. This is for intelligence and for patience. That's what Saturn stands for. The third one is the ring finger touching your thumb, which is Na. This is your sun finger, Surya Mudra. This is for vitality and for stamina. And the last one is Ma, which is your Mercury finger and your thumb, which is the Buddhi Mudra. And Mercury is for communication. So this is for the ability to communicate. And then again, we go back to Sa, Ta, Na, Ma. Sa, Ta, Na, Ma. Right? And hands are resting on the knees or your thighs if you're sitting on a chair. Now there's a visualization. You would, each time you will, and I'll play an audio in a bit. So each time you hear the word Sa or Ta, the first syllable, imagine that the sound current starts from above your head and it moves down and out through your brow point. So it's projected into the infinity. So it comes Sa and Ta and Na, Ma. Yeah. So just visualize that energy to help us with ensuring that we don't have any kind of, heaviness in the head later on. So keep up the visualization every time you chant Sa, Ta, Na, Ma. Okay. And you will hear the audio in three different forms. One will be chanting aloud, which is the voice of the human. Then you'll hear a whisper like Sa, which is the voice of the lover. And then there'll be a silent tune, but you can still chant Satanama inside of your heart. Okay? So the meditation is in such a way that for the first 2 minutes, we will chant out aloud. Then we whisper for 2 minutes. Then we go into silence. Then we again come back to whispering for 2 minutes. And then we end with the chant aloud for 2 minutes. Yeah. And I will prompt as we go on. So don't be, worried and concerned about so much information. I will guide you when we go on. Okay. So please sit tall and sit with ease and comfort. And I will, in a moment, just share my audio also with you so that you can hear this beautiful mantra. So please sit tall. Eyes are closed and your focus can be in between your brows, your eyebrows. So keep up with the Sa, Ta, Na, and Ma, yeah? Just the way I showed you with the fingers. And let's begin.
Sa, ta, na, ma. 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 Sa, ta,
Just please stay in silence for the next 1 minute and just stay with your experience. And take a deep inhale. Hold the breath if you can and stretch your arms up above your head. Spread the fingers wide. Keep the breath held if you can for just a few seconds more. Stretch the spine. Exhale. And bring your hands down in a big semicircle. I'm just gonna recite the closing prayer so that we can close this part of the session. And if you have any questions, we can take them out. Just the way we tuned in, let's tune out. So just hands at the heart center. And this is a prayer for yourself, for your loved ones, and for the world, for the planet. May the Lord sun shine upon you. All love surround you. And the pure light within you. Have your way on. Guide your way on. Guide your way. Let's just chant one Sat Nam together. Sat, truth, Nam, name, which means my name is the truth. My identity is truth. Long Sat, short Nam. Let's inhale together, please. Sat. Nam. Lots of love, peace, and light your way. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Pragya. Thank you so much for an enlightening, beautiful, and soothing session. Really so much. I'm sure all the participants must have loved this past hour being here with us. Let's see if anyone has a question.
Yeah,
Participants.
I see one in the chat by Anu. Are there any prerequisites to be a Kundalini Yoga student? Can a beginner also do it? Of course, of course. Anybody can do it. It's for anybody and everybody.
It's a thing, but with the writer that anybody and everybody doesn't mean that just after watching this one session, they should start practicing it.
Yes, of course. That is true. You need a guidance. So Kundalini Yoga must never be done without the initiation through a teacher. It's a lineage. So we say that it's even though we run classes and charge for our sessions and stuff, but it is said that Kundalini Yoga is a transmission. So it's an energy. So you are sharing it and you are sort of channeling it for others. So always ensure that you start with a teacher. Yeah. Any other questions? Is it one kind of Kundalini Yoga or are there other kinds? Surely there are other kinds. Good to see you, Meera. There are other kinds too, and there are many lineages. So there are different, people who have been teaching it. So different modalities exist within the Kundalini Yoga system as well. I am trained in the one which is taught by Yogi Bhajan. Teaching can be done online or offline. I would say the first session would be nice if it's in person, but I have been doing it online with my teacher, and I taught, also online during the COVID times. So now that everything has gone back to normal, also people are preferring, online sessions. But yes, once you've established that rapport with your teacher and you've experienced an in-person session, just so that, sometimes people have certain limitations, and it's good to, to discuss them in person with your teacher. Oh, wow, this is a huge question there. Or it's a comment.
No, we have a question at the end also.
It's a question also, okay.
Another paragraph.
Is the view of Kundalini Yoga about chakra blockage? Is it really possible that a chakra, which apparently is an expression of the universal order in human being and not created by, I'm not sure if I follow this, but can function wrongly? Or what is called blockage is in truth something that is happening more specifically and prevent the chakra to express fully to the surface? Yeah, so blockages are precisely, when certain areas of our life, and it's a reflection, right? When you analyze and when you assess which area of your life is not functioning well, you can associate and see which associated chakra is the one which is linked with that. And there are specific sets. Kundalini Yoga has specific sets for those chakras. So you can work on different chakras and the blockages that you encounter, so that you can express in that area of your life more freely. So yeah, I hope that addresses the question. In case not, please feel free to ask again. That's how I understood it. How does one know that you are ready to do Kundalini Yoga? Oh, that's a brilliant question. It's a calling. I think it's a calling. When I first attended my first session, I was just so pulled that clearly I was ready. And I think everybody in my peer circle who, in our Sangat, who I know, has that special attraction and affiliation to it. And of course, for that, you need a couple of times of exposure. If it catches, if it really works, it might. So that's how you know that you're ready for it, because you experience that love for the practice and that pull, which is not explicable in some senses. You just want to do it because you want to do it. That's how it has impacted you. Yeah, like I said, for me, I don't know whether you were there at the beginning of the session when I shared a little bit about my journey and how I was going through a lot of things in my life when I first started practicing Kundalini. And even now, life hasn't become any less volatile and uncertain and complex and ambiguous. It continues to be so. And the way it impacts is that it helps me to center myself every time I feel lost and I feel, disconnected with myself. Every time I have a fight with my husband or, an argument with my colleague, it brings me back. It just allows me to, offers me a chance to reconnect with that part of me which knows better, So it helped me be more conscious in my life. That's how it has impacted me. The reason I asked, because there are so many forms of yoga, then how does one know which one to take on and why? Surely that's a individual journey, Anu, I think, it's always a matter of hit and try, I think. That's my personal view on it. Maybe Dr. Vijlani, you can add to that question. I'm sure you have something to say there, but you keep on trying. You attend various sessions and you see which one is calling out to you. I've attended, and it's possible that you want to do, two of them at the same time too. Like I like my Hatha yoga classes equally, So it's not like it's a mutually exclusive kind of a thing. You can enjoy both equally or three things equally. But for me, what has always kept me coming back, my home practice has always been Kundalini Yoga, always. So yeah. Do you need to wear the white cloth on your head all the time or while we're practicing? While I'm practicing, while I'm teaching, even as students, if you don't wear it, it's fine. We advise it, we encourage it, but as teachers, we are always wearing it, always. So yeah, it helps. It helps to, like I said, center your energy, because it's a lot of, Kundalini deep energy work. So it helps you. And I just trust the process. I trust it because it was given to us. And I take it, completely. Yeah.
Thank you, Pragya. If
Yes.
anyone else has a
Any
question,
questions?
please raise the hand or put it up in the chat box.
So beautiful. Thank you to all of you that you joined and you sat, through it. And I hope you could find something of value for yourself.
So Anu says that she was under the impression that Kundalini Yoga is an advanced form of yoga and practice. What are your views?
You can start, Anu, anytime. You can be advanced in your journey, once you start, but it's for anybody and everybody. So that's not really, you don't have to be an advanced form of practitioner. There's no prerequisite in that sense. If it calls out to you, you just start.
Thank you, Pragya. Dr. Vijlani, sir, if
Yes,
you have anything to
I would like to ask, only sadhana kriya will help, or rest of the practices which are mentioned, posture and all these things should be practiced?
All of them. What you experienced today was, in the end, was a kriya in itself. It had breath work. It had mudras. It had chant. And yeah, so this was a meditation kriya. But there are kriyas which are meant also for, which are based on physical practices as well. So let's say, like I said, I shared one of the screens that I shared was about, let's say, kriya for disease resistance. Yeah, a kriya for your basic spinal series, a kriya for kidneys. So there are different kriyas for different areas of, of life that you would like to work on. And these are different things. For example, it's a mixture of exercises like postures, breath, and sound current, and your mudras. No? So it's a mixed work, so to say. All four things combined together to make a kriya, and that works on a very subtle level. Then kriyas are also forms of asanas. No, as I said, kriya is a set of various things. Asanas is one of them. So if I say I'm doing a kriya, I'm doing a set of asanas plus mudras plus eye gaze plus sound current, chanting, meditation, all of these together form a kriya. Yeah. Some kriyas can only be meditation based. Some kriyas can be purely one exercise can also be one kriya. But by definition, kriya is a larger set of various things which I just mentioned.
Thank you,
And
Pragya.
it allows you to attain a particular state of mind. So kriya for inner anger release, for example. So that would be a kriya, which is a set of postures, a set of breath work, a set of meditations, which help you to release that inner anger, for example.
This Hatha yoga and purpose is also a Kundalini yoga. It means cleansing chakra. And this Kundalini yoga, is there any difference you are saying?
Difference between Kundalini yoga and which one? I didn't follow that.
Hatha yoga. In that
Hatha
also
yoga.
we are cleansing the chakras and cleansing the nadis.
Yes.
That's final purpose is Raj Yoga, but beginning from this all cleansing processes. Yes. So,
Right. That's correct. So Hatha yoga primarily has focus on the body level of asanas and getting the physical perfection of asanas. That's the core. Of course, there are other things as well, like you said. We have meditations and chants in that as well. But Kundalini yoga is really focused on that work, which starts with the focus is that you clear these pathways. It's primarily for that, so that your overall that channel of your sushumna is clear for the Kundalini to rise and to make its presence, where it needs to be. So Kundalini yoga is focused on that aspect, and it achieves this through postures and through other things that I just mentioned that are part of the kriya. In Kundalini yoga, we also don't, one of the differences I find is we don't touch, when we are doing our work as a teacher, I do not touch anybody because they are in their energy, they're in their, subtle, like I said, it's an auric, and eighth chakra is your auric, your arc line. So we let that person be in their practice. Yeah. And it's what you do as a practice. In Hatha yoga, you would go and actually help the student with correcting the posture and making sure that they've got it right. So that level of attention and that level of focus on physical asana is much more. That's one of the key differences. Okay.
Dr. Bislani, if I'm sure you have something to add, please.
Thank you, Arunima, and thank you, Pragya, for that exhaustive session. Let me start with the last question and what was going on towards the end, about which Pragya said maybe I could say something. And that was which yoga for whom? I think that's what basically the question was, comparison between different schools of yoga and so on. The yoga is today a rather overused and therefore also misused and abused word, in the sense that there are schools of yoga which equate it with a certain number of a certain set of practices which have to be done exactly in the same by everybody, and nothing more needs to be done. That itself is yoga. And at the other are schools such as the integral yoga of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, which are not technique intensive, although techniques are permitted, and which they give the seeker a total freedom to carve out his or her own path. Leaving aside those which have gone to the extreme of equating with physical practices and asking for nothing else, much of the other schools, particularly the traditional schools, have something in common, and therefore there can be overlaps. That is something important to understand. And therefore, when a person says that I like Hatha yoga, and then ultimately the aim is Raja yoga, and so on and so forth, it reflects that thing which is common to all schools. And that, I think, has been beautifully put by Sri Aurobindo when he says that yoga is a methodized effort, which means not what type of method, not what set of techniques, but it's a methodized effort. It's not haphazard effort. It's a methodized effort for what? For going towards self-perfection, which means self-improvement that affects all parts of being, the body, the mind, and naturally that improvement and perfection will come only if the body and the mind are anchored to the soul. And the ultimate goal is union with the divine, which means becoming one with the only one that is perfect and uniting with that, merging with that. So that is the ultimate aim. So that unites all yogas. Now, Yogi Bhajan, about, whom you talked and who took Kundalini Yoga to the West in the 1960s, reached there at a very critical juncture in the social development in those countries. I was a young boy then, and there were many others who were young in their 20s. Means those who were born in 1940s were young people in the 1960s. This was the first generation in the West that was on a large scale super saturated with the material progress which their parents had taken as their ideal. And these children had it easy, and at the same time saw a lot that was wrong with it. They found that although their parents had achieved so much in the material sphere and were super saturated with it, they were starving at some deeper level, and therefore they were very unhappy. And therefore, they rebelled, and they said clearly that they did not want to be like their parents. And at the same time, if the alternative was to turn more to religion, that also they did not want, because having grown up in that era, which had been just preceded by the triumph of science and rationality, organized religion again did not suit them. And therefore, they did not know what the alternative was, how one could be happier, how it can go beyond material progress. So they wanted to do it, but they didn't know where to go. So they were lost. That was a lost generation. And as a young boy, when I used to read these articles and newspaper reports about that generation in the West, it was sort of interesting to see how those people are completely, those young people are lost. And some are seeking refuge and making a trip to India and then wearing those flowery dresses, unconventional dresses. So they were called flower children, hippies. Now, these were the terms that came up. And many of them sought refuge in drugs, because at least that gave them a temporary high and a feeling that if they're connected to some higher parts of, they altered their consciousness in a way that they enjoyed. So they took to drugs. So that was the type of situation in which Yogi Bhajan reached there and filled a real need, because it told them there is an alternative and this is the alternative. I have a friend, who has narrated the story to me, and therefore I can speak from his experience. His name is Satbir Khalsa. He was born and brought up in Canada. He's around my age. And now, of course, he's in the US. After that, he migrated to the US and eventually became a research worker on yoga at Harvard, from where he's about to retire now. So what this person says is that when Yogi Bhajan came, we were all lost. Many of them had taken to drugs and so on and so forth. And so he was a ray of hope. That someone who can tell us what the alternative is to what our parents have been doing, what is the alternative that can give us a more dependable and enduring source of true happiness. So that is what they were looking for. And here was a ray of hope. And he recognized what their need was, and also what is it that will appeal to them and what is it that they need. And he gave them what they wanted. And the result was that he also did not preach a religion, but he ended up converting many. As my friend says, that many people took refuge in him. Some learned yoga from him, but did not convert to Sikhism. Some converted and became Sikhs, but did not learn yoga. He did both. So that way, he became a Sikh and he also learned yoga from him. And then went on to eventually become a yoga researcher, because he had a background in neurophysiology, and then with that background, he continued into yoga research on, particularly in the area of insomnia, and linking it to circadian rhythms, and later I took it to schools in the US, continues to do that in a very organized and enthusiastic way. He has been one of the pioneers in taking yoga to American schools and putting up this battle that yoga is not a religion, and therefore we don't have to object to it. We are not transporting Hinduism to or Sikhism to the US. So he has been one of those leaders. Now, therefore, one can understand the character that Yogi Bhajan gave to his yoga. It is simple, it is precise, and it does not call itself a religion. Even when there is a chanting involved in meditation, it's a neutral sound, not a sound which will have the flavor of any religion. And it guarantees quick results. Now, these are some of the concrete things that they wanted. And then, since they had grown up in the era of rationality, he also gave them some philosophy around which they could work. So there was something for the body to do, there was body work to do, and there was emotional satisfaction which they could all experience, and that always is a dominant factor in guiding us towards anything. And then those who wanted some food for the intellect, there was a philosophy woven around Kundalini in a way that would appeal to them and be acceptable to them. So in that sense, we filled a real need, and that was something of great value that he did. Gave a lost generation, a wayward generation, something concrete to look up to and something concrete to follow. So, but then it doesn't mean that only it's the young people in that era at that particular place who are the one whom it will suit. It can suit many more even today and in many different parts of the world, including India. And that is why he has many people practicing it. But then we have to look at it from that broader angle of the yogic tradition, which is broad-based and can encompass uh, a lot of overlap between different traditional schools of yoga. And that was one of the reasons why Sri Aurobindo had to go in for a synthesis of the major traditional schools of yoga in his integral yoga, which has room for everything, and at the same time does not make anything compulsory or obligatory. So nothing is specifically prescribed, nothing is proscribed either. You carve out your own path, emphasize what you enjoy more, and at the same time, bring it into your daily life. Which, of course, Yogi Bhajan also emphasized that it is the householder's yoga, which means you don't have to renounce the world. But then, how exactly to bring it in your daily life, that was probably left to the person concerned. And having sort of uh, moved on to a clear, concrete path which had spiritual roots, it was sure that they would bring that element also into the rest of their life. There will be a spillover effect of the physical practices as well as the meditative practices. They will have a spillover effect in daily life. And certainly he did not advocate that you do not enter your, so you have to give up worldly life. It was the householder's yoga, as you said. So with these few comments, I think I'll stop here. We have gone well past the usual time at which we finish, but I think it has been a very interesting, exhaustive, and informative session, both educative as well as informative. And I'm sure those whom it appeals will make further efforts to learn Kundalini Yoga. I'm sure there are plenty of teachers available, including Pragya herself.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, in case you have any questions later on, also, maybe I should just leave my number here in case you have any, further questions. You are very welcome to contact me. I forgot to put a slide in there for this, but I just realized maybe people may have other questions later on. So yeah, please feel free to reach out in case you have any other queries.
Thank you, sir. Thanks again, Pragya. Thanks a lot for sharing your time with us and, of course, the valuable knowledge. Thank you, participants, for being there with us. We can close today's session with a moment of peaceful silence. Namaste.